In the video called 3D Basics, we were looking at how you could bring a sphere into WATCHOUT and texture it in a way very similar to the one you see here. In this one, we're going to step back a little bit and look at how you prepare a 3D object such as this one from within a 3D program in order to bring it into WATCHOUT. So let's jump right over into the 3D application. So here I am now inside a 3D program. The program I'm using here is called Cinema 4D, but there's a wide variety of 3D creation and editing applications out there, all the way from the free but very competent Blender up to high-end programs such as 3D Studio Max, Maya, and these other high-end programs. They all work in more or less the same way and accomplish the same things, but the user interface is quite different in these programs. So I found Cinema 4D to be reasonably easy to understand and to use, so that's become my favorite 3D program. So let's look at how you would create a sphere in Cinema and export that so it can be used by WATCHOUT. Start by creating the sphere, create object, sphere. And you see it shows up right in here. You can now zoom in, zoom out, you can move around and so on. So that's your sphere. It doesn't really look like much right now because it's just a gray sphere. So let's create a material for it. So we go down into the material manager down here, new material, and you see it just shows up like a gray bland color here, and I can apply that material to the sphere by just dragging it onto the sphere, and now you can see I got a gray sphere here as well. So let's move this over a little bit to get a little more space here. Now I could go ahead and export this right away to WATCHOUT, and that would work just fine because I can then apply the real texture that I want to have, the earth map in this case, onto the sphere once I get into WATCHOUT. But if you want to see what that looks like already in the 3D program, you can change this material by just double clicking it, and then you can go into color. Here you can see you can just tweak the color. For example, we want to make a little pink, you just change the color like that. But we don't really want to have just a flat color. We want to have an image or a texture on it. So you go to texture down here and you pick your texture. So that's the map that we have here. Let's move this over a little bit so you can see it. So that's the map that I want to use as a texture. So I bring that in and you see right away it shows up on the 3D surface here. It looks a little low res here, and that's a internal thing in Cinema 4D that you have a fairly low resolution of the texture preview. You can just bump that up in editor and texture preview size. That has nothing to do with how textures are applied in WATCHOUT. It just makes it look a little nicer inside Cinema. So now if you want to bring that over to WATCHOUT, you just go ahead and choose export on the file menu. Oops, do that again. And you pick the format that you want to use. You can use an OBJ, or you can use a Collada or a 3ds or any other format that WATCHOUT would read. So I just take a 3ds file here, and then I go ahead and export this over to WATCHOUT. And here you get the question about how to scale it. And since WATCHOUT can deal with the scaling once it gets the data, that doesn't really matter a whole lot. So you can just leave this at the default value for now. So click OK, and now it's exported. And let's move over to WATCHOUT and see how we can now bring this in. Back in WATCHOUT, let's bring in those two pieces of content. Go to Media Add, and I bring those two pieces in, and they show up in the media window. I'll grab the sphere and put it on stage, and then I take the texture and I drag it onto the sphere, and you see it shows up just as it did in the 3D program. Let's spin it around a little bit. One thing you may notice here is that the Earth is lit from all sides, which is of course not correct. So how do you deal with that? Well, you can't really deal with it in WATCHOUT because there is no lighting in WATCHOUT. So you can't place a light on this side that illuminates it in the proper way. So that's something that you have to take care of already back in the 3D program. So in the next video, we will jump back into Cinema and see how we can apply lighting to an object and how we can bake that into the texture and then bring a lit texture into WATCHOUT.